Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're opening up a case file that really sent shockwaves through New York City. It's more than just a crime story. It reveals something, well, deeply troubling about our justice system itself.
That's right. We're talking about the hunt for a serial killer the press dubbed the Justice Killer, or JK.
And his targets. This is what really got people. They weren't criminals, not exactly. They were former jurors, people who'd done their civic duty.
Precisely. Primarily jury forepersons, actually.
Yeah.
Individuals who had presided over these high-profile trials where, in the killer's view, the guilty parties had, well, walked free. He saw himself as delivering the real final verdict.
It's incredibly chilling. And the signature he left, it was unmistakable, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. At every single scene, a stark red capital letter J, usually in blood or something equally symbolic.
It wasn't random then. It spoke volumes. Calculation, rage, maybe some kind of symbolic mission against the legal system itself.
Absolutely. It suggested a deep personal grievance. So our mission today is to trace the path of this investigation. We're pulling together the details from the sources about the victims, the psychological profile they built of the killer, and even the internal NYPD politics that complicated the whole thing.
And central to that is the investigator himself, right? Detective Captain Artemis Beam. He was actually pulled out of retirement for this.
Yeah, reluctantly. That's where we really need to start, I think.
Yeah.
To understand the hunt, you've got to understand the hunter.
Okay, let's do that. Artemis Beam. When this all kicks off, he's 53, described as tall, raw-boned. And he's only 4 months into retirement. A retirement he seems to have expected to stick. Hashtag I the investigator and the burden of the past.
Right, and that retirement wasn't exactly, golden years kicking back. It was complicated. There's the physical aspect, definitely.
He'd been shot.
Yeah, 4 months before the JK case landed on his desk. Took a .32 caliber slug in the leg. They got it out, but it left him with this 2-inch pucker scar on his thigh. Not insignificant.
And that happened during his last case.
His final caller, as the source puts it, a confrontation with a young robbery suspect, 22 years old, in a parking garage. Tense situation, but, the physical injury, that might have been the easier part to deal with.
So there was more going on. Bureaucracy. Politics.
Bingo. The sources paint Beam as a kind of old-school cop, very capable, but with, let's say, little patience for the political games within the NYPD. He apparently ruffled some feathers, stepped on the wrong toes.
So the gunshot was maybe a convenient excuse for some people.
It certainly seems like it might have precipitated an exit that some of the brass were maybe hoping for. He felt pushed out, resentful of the system even before this whole justice killer nightmare began.
But beneath the job stuff, there was something much heavier weighing on him, wasn't there? His wife, Lonnie.
Yeah, that's the real core of his trauma, I think, Lonnie. They'd been married for 23 years, and just 5 months before he got shot, she died.
How did she die?
Tragically. She jumped from a high balcony, during a party, apparently. The sources strongly suggest suicide, stemming from a long battle with severe depression.
Oh, that's awful. And Beam felt responsible.
Carried immense guilt. Not just grief, but guilt. He felt his job, his dedication to the force, the long hours, the darkness he dealt with daily. He felt it had contributed to her mental state, made her depression worse.
Wow. So the job he loved felt like it cost him the person he loved.
Exactly. That's the weight he's carrying when Deputy Chief Da Vinci approaches him about the JK case. He's drowning in grief. Retirement without Lonnie wasn't peaceful. The sources say it felt like a disease.
So taking the case, it wasn't about wanting to be a cop again.
Not really. It was about needing a distraction, something all-consuming to stop his mind from replaying that tragedy, from circling back to that balcony. He needed to feel useful, to just function.
And Da Vinci, his boss, knew this.
Oh, Da Vinci knew exactly which buttons to push. He knew Beam needed the case, needed the structure, the purpose. The sources even suggest Da Vinci saw Beam's potential success as a way to boost his own career, maybe eyeing the chief's chair himself. Yeah, it's quite cynical, really.
Okay, so Beam's carrying this immense personal burden, but there were other shadows, weren't there? His sister, Cassie, and this figure, Harry Lima.
Right. They add another layer to his already fragile state. His sister, Cassie, she's a psychoanalyst.
Yeah.
Very different from Beam, physically short, blocky, but she clearly understood his psychological state.
She wanted him to get help.
Yeah, she was pushing him towards analysis. She saw how damaged he was, and she also shared this really unsettling dream she'd had.
A premonition.
Sort of.
Yeah.
It was vague, fragmented, something about biblical figures, tall columns. But the chilling part was her seeing Beam betrayed by someone close. She even identified Beam in the dream as Judas.
Wow. Talk about adding to his paranoia, especially given the NYPD politics.
Exactly. It just seeds this idea that the threat might be internal, someone he trusts. Very corrosive.
And Harry Lima, that sounds less like a dream and more like a concrete failure.
Oh, absolutely. Harry Lima was a ghost from Beam's past. A major professional regret. Lima was an informant, a snitch, in a big jewel theft case linked to organized crime.
And Beam promised him protection.
Gave him his personal guarantee. And the system, or maybe Beam himself, failed. Lima was murdered, his body dumped.
But there was something specific about how they found him, right? The hand.
Yes, that's the detail that haunts Beam. Lima's severed right hand was found blocks away from the body, and it was clutching something.
What?
A $1 bill. And on the finger, Lima's own flashy, kind of cheap diamond and ruby ring.
What did that symbolize, the dollar bill?
It was a message from the mob. An informant's life, despite police promises, is worth nothing. $1. Cheap. Disposable. Beam internalized that failure completely. It cemented this feeling that he couldn't protect people, that the system he represented was fundamentally flawed.
And that guilt over Lima, that becomes important later, doesn't it?
Critically important. The justice killer knows about Lima and uses that guilt directly against Beam.
Okay, so Beam is back, haunted by Lonnie, haunted by Lima, and he's thrown into this serial killer case. What did the initial crime scenes tell them about the killer? The methods?
The first thing that stood out was the professionalism. This wasn't sloppy. The killer was disciplined, skilled, and consistent, at least initially.
The weapon.
Same gun used in the first confirmed killings, firing a very specific round. A .32 caliber steel-jacketed slug.
Right, you mentioned the steel jacket. Why is that significant? Is it just about power?
It's more about forensics, actually.
Yeah.
Lead bullets tend to flatten or break apart on impact, right? Makes matching them back to a specific gun barrel much harder.
Ah, I see.
But a steel-jacketed slug holds its shape much better. It penetrates well, sure, but crucially, it preserves those microscopic rifling marks from the gun barrel.
So the killer wanted the police to connect the dots, to know it was one person.
It seems that way. It's like saying, yes, this is me, and I'm good at this. It also suggests a certain level of confidence, or maybe arrogance.
And besides the bullet choice, what else pointed to this professionalism? Training, maybe?
Definitely. High operational security. Wore gloves, no fingerprints left behind, very careful about collecting the spent shell casings.
That takes time, discipline.
It does. Most shooters don't bother, especially under pressure. And using a silencer. Many of the shots weren't even heard by neighbors or witnesses nearby. Suggests planning, timing, maybe inside knowledge of the locations.
So meticulous about hiding his identity, but then leaves this very loud, symbolic signature.
Exactly, the J. Which brings us to the first confirmed victim they connected, Lois Banner. Her scene really set the stage for the killer's mindset.
What happened there?
Lois Banner managed a high-end lamp store, light and shade lamp emporium. She was found dead, actually underneath a large piece of expensive fabric called Evening in Paris.
Wow, theatrical.
Very. And the source says the killer got close enough to whisper the word justice right before he shot her. Then placed the signature, a capital J, carefully cut from red cloth, right on her body.
Wow, justice. So the motive seemed clear from the start.
Or at least the theme was clear. And once Beam's team started digging into the victims' backgrounds, the pattern solidified. It wasn't about who they were personally, necessarily.
But it was about their jury service.
Specifically, their role as foreperson on juries. And not just any juries. These were high-profile cases where someone the public largely believed was guilty walked free.
Like what kind of cases?
The sources mentioned 3 specific examples. A notorious wife killer, a violent gang member involved in a shooting with multiple victims, and someone who had kidnapped and tortured an NYU student. Cases that caused public outrage when they ended in acquittal.
So the killer saw these forepersons as symbols of the system's failure.
Exactly. The face of a callous, heartless system in his mind. He was correcting its mistakes.
And the third victim, Beverly Baker, cemented this pattern, right?
Yes. Beverly Baker, another sales manager, killed in her apartment. This time, the J wasn't cloth. It was smeared onto her vanity mirror with her own lipstick.
God, the intimacy of that.
It's disturbing. And the way she was found, shot once in the back while sitting at that vanity. The investigators theorized she might have seen her killer in the mirror reflection, maybe just as she was applying that lipstick.
Chilling. Was the husband a suspect? Floyd Baker?
Initially, of course.
Yeah.
He was a retired Army Ranger, described as a golf fanatic, but he had an absolutely solid alibi.
What was it?
Golfing. Out in Connecticut, had multiple witnesses, apparently even shot an eagle that day, which, people remember.
An eagle saves him. Okay, so not the husband. Did they find anything else out about the Bakers?
Well, under pressure from Beam, Floyd did admit the marriage wasn't perfect. He'd hired a private detective because he suspected Beverly was having an affair.
With who? Did it matter?
Turned out to be a guy named Lenny who sold, get this, novelty fire extinguisher lamps. Bizarre detail, but ultimately irrelevant to the Justice Killer's motive. Just marital drama.
Right. So the forensics confirmed it was a JK.
Yep. Assistant Emmy Irv Minskoff nailed the time of death between 7 and 10 a.m. And crucially, the .32 slug was a perfect match to the others, no doubt now. New York had a serial killer targeting jurors.
And this is where Detective Nell Corey enters the picture with a really significant breakthrough, expanding the timeline.
Yes, Nell Corey was sharp. She wasn't just looking at recent cases. She used computer analysis, searching older, unsolved NYC crimes. But she filtered specifically for shootings, indoors, where there might be deliberate clues left behind, or odd symbolic elements.
Smart approach. What did she find?
She connected two previously unrelated cold cases to the JK pattern. Two older victims.
How much older?
Significantly. One was Rachel Cohen, killed 4 years earlier. She had a red J drawn on her forehead with a marker pen.
4 years.
Another, Ira Selig, killed 2 years before that. Shot in an elevator. Red J's scrawled on the elevator mirror, again with lipstick.
So this wasn't a new killer at all. He'd been active, just slower, for years.
At least 4 years, maybe longer. And now, suddenly he was accelerating, picking up the pace dramatically.
What did the profilers make of that acceleration?
That's classic serial killer behavior, often predictive. It brought the confirmed victim count to 6. But more importantly, it suggested the killer was escalating, maybe becoming bolder, maybe losing control. It often signals they're heading towards a mistake, driven by this intensifying compulsion. Tag 3. Escalation, media, and misdirection.
Okay, so 6 victims confirmed, a killer who's been operating for years and is now speeding up. The pressure on Beam and the NYPD must have been immense.
Absolutely crushing. And the killer, well, he reacted just as the profilers might have expected. He escalated, broadened his scope.
How so? Not just forepersons anymore.
He started thinking about it. The sources mentioned him contemplating moving beyond the forepersons who are relatively easy to track down. Their names are often public record, to targeting any juror from those controversial cases.
Wow, that changes the game entirely.
Massively. Suddenly, the potential victim pool isn't just one person per jury, it's 12. The source actually quotes the killer's thinking as fear times 12. It was about amplifying the terror across the entire city, making anyone who served on a jury feel vulnerable.
But he didn't stop at jurors, did he? He went higher up the chain.
No, he aimed right at the institution itself. Judge Roger Parker, an appeals court judge, shot dead in his limo.
How? Where?
During a routine stop for gas. A single shot, right to the center of the forehead. Extremely precise, extremely bold. This was a clear message. It's not just the juries I condemn, it's the whole system, the judges, the law itself.
And then the Tina Flip murder happened. That felt like a real shift, didn't it? A departure from the pattern.
A huge departure, both in target and method. Tina Flip was an attorney, but her connection to the JK's mission was indirect. She was married to Martin Portell, a former jury foreman.
So not the foreman himself, but his wife.
Exactly, a major deviation.
Yeah.
And the method, completely different. No .32 caliber gunshot this time. She was killed at the airport, strangled.
Strangled.
Brutally. With a thin, high-tensile wire. The sources suggest piano wire, maybe fishing leader, fitted with small wooden handles for grip. It was so violent it nearly decapitated her.
God, that's visceral compared to a clean shot.
Incredibly so. Emmy Minskoff noted the extreme force involved, and the signature was still there, but adapted. A red J, scrawled in Tina Flip's own blood on the inside rear window of the car she was found near.
Different weapon, related target, same signature. What did that tell the profilers?
It showed adaptability, a willingness to, quote, experiment. But more than that, the shift from a distant shooting to hands-on strangulation suggested a change in the killer's psychology.
More personal.
Much more personal. Strangulation is intimate, requires direct physical contact, overpowering the victim. It suggested the killer might be finding a deeper, more intense, maybe even crueler satisfaction in the act itself. It fit with the idea that he was spiraling, becoming more driven by the violence itself, not just the justice aspect.
While the police are dealing with this escalating violence and shifting MO, the whole thing blows up in the media, right? Thanks to Adelaide Starr.
Oh, yeah. Adelaide Starr, actress, singer, dancer, described as quite the package. She gets a jury summons notice, and instead of just finding an excuse like most celebrities probably would,
She goes public.
big time,
Yeah.
turns it into a full-blown media campaign, goes on the Matt Black show, this popular talk show, and argues her case. But smartly, she frames it not as fear, but as an issue of legal fairness.
What was her angle?
It was clever, actually. She basically said, look, if the city is tacitly admitting it's too dangerous for someone like me to serve on a jury because of the justice killer, if they're going to excuse celebrities.
Then they have to excuse everyone.
Exactly. You can't have one law for the famous and another for regular citizens. If it's a death sentence for me, it's potentially a death sentence for anyone called. So you need a moratorium on all jury duty until this guy is caught.
That's a powerful argument, especially to a terrified public.
It hit a major nerve. Huge protests erupted outside City Hall. People carrying signs, Adelaide's right, free Adelaide. It put massive pressure on the city, and especially on Deputy Chief Da Vinci, the guy running the investigation. Made him look completely overwhelmed, outplayed by an actress.
How did Da Vinci and Beam want to handle that? It's a PR nightmare on top of a murder spree.
They were split. Da Vinci wanted to stand firm, not give in to the pressure, uphold the system, but that risked, the entire jury system grinding to a halt if people just refused to show up en masse.
And Beam.
Beam was more pragmatic. He saw the immediate danger of mass panic and civic breakdown. He argued they needed to defuse the situation fast. His suggestion was to use a bureaucratic out. Issue a statement excusing Starr specifically as a hardship case. Quietly take the heat off, let the hysteria die down so they could actually focus on catching the killer.
So the killer's actions are now indirectly causing riots and threatening the legal system itself.
Precisely. It's chaos. And right in the middle of all this external chaos, the justice killer makes a move that's deeply personal. He targets Beam directly.
How? By bringing up Harry Lima again.
Yes, that ghost from Beam's past. A duplicate of Harry Lima's distinctive gaudy ring, the one found on his severed hand years ago, suddenly turns up.
Where?
Planted in an antique shop called Things Past. And the shop owner, Nola Lima, Harry's widow.
Who Beam was becoming involved with?
Exactly. The timing, the location, the specific object. It was all perfectly engineered to hit Beam where he was most vulnerable. Nola herself thought maybe it was just a cruel prank, or someone trying to scare her, maybe even draw Beam closer.
But Beam knew it was the JK.
Instantly. He recognized it as a direct psychological attack. The killer was basically saying, I'm not just targeting the system, Beam. I'm targeting you. I know your history. I know your guilt over Lima. I know about Nola.
Using his past failure and his current emotional vulnerability against him.
Right. Trying to divert him, distract him, maybe even break him. And the fact that the ring itself wasn't valuable, maybe 2,000 wholesale gold-plated glass rubies, low-grade diamonds, proved the value was purely symbolic, purely a taunt. It also confirmed something terrifying.
What's that?
That the killer wasn't just getting information from the news. They had intimate knowledge of Beam's past, his personal life. They were watching the investigation itself. Closely. #TagPima.
Yeah.
Crucial mistakes. And the killer's breakdown.
We talked about the profilers predicting that the killer's acceleration, the spiraling, would likely lead to a mistake. Did that happen?
It did, a major one. It came with the murder of Richard Sims, the rapper known as Cold Cat.
Cold Cat. He'd been acquitted of killing his wife, right? EDPF. Seemed like a classic JK target.
On the surface, yes. The public widely believed he was guilty and got away with it. So the justice killer targeted him, shot him in his recording studio, left the signature red cloth J on his back. Textbook JK execution.
Odd.
But Cold Cat was actually innocent of murdering his wife.
Who did it then?
The truth came out after the JK killed Cold Cat. The real killer was his friend, another rapper named Knee-High. Knee-High had been having an affair with EDPF. He confessed to the police that he, Knee-High, had killed her, and then lied on the witness stand during Cold Cat's trial to give him an alibi. He assumed Cold Cat would be acquitted anyway.
Oh my God. So the justice killer executed an innocent man.
Exactly. And for someone whose entire justification, whose entire self-constructed identity was built on delivering righteous justice against the guilty who slipped through the cracks, this was devastating.
How did it affect him, the JK?
According to the sources, it threw him badly off his game. He realized he'd become the very thing he hated, someone condemning an innocent person based on flawed information. His moral high ground just crumbled beneath him.
So his focus shifted.
Immediately.
Yeah.
And intensely. It wasn't about symbolic system targets anymore. It became laser-focused on punishing Knee-High. Not just because Nihai was the real killer of Edie, but because Nihai's lies had caused the JK to make this catastrophic moral error. Nihai had corrupted his justice.
Beam must have seen this as a huge opportunity. The killer was compromised, emotional, predictable now.
Absolutely. Beam realized that JK was now driven by a need for personal vengeance against Nihai, to sort of cleanse his own mistake. Nihai, understandably, was terrified for his life.
So they used Nihai.
Yes. Beam convinced Nihai to go public, demand police protection. They made a show of it. Even arranged for Nihai to be briefly put in protective custody, then very publicly released him back to his apartment. The idea was to paint a target on his back, basically.
Setting a trap, knowing the JK would come for him.
Exactly. Luring the killer into a predictable location.
And did the killer take the bait?
He did. Nihai was murdered in his apartment. Shot. Precision shot again, this time right in the forehead. And the signature red cloth J was placed on his chest.
But the timing was crucial here, wasn't it? Something about a delivery.
Yes, the timing was incredibly tight. Nihai was shot literally moments before his regular Chinese food delivery arrived. A guy named Raymond, bringing his usual order, egg foo young.
So the killer was in and out just seconds before someone else showed up.
Right. It showed he was rushing, maybe taking risks he wouldn't normally take, operating on impulse, driven by that need to get Nihai. It pointed to that psychological unraveling the profilers talked about.
But the biggest clue came from outside the building, a witness.
Yes, a witness across the street named Dorchester. He saw someone leaving Nihai's building right around the time of the murder, and he described the person as wearing a uniform.
A police uniform.
Looked like it. A police-style jacket and cap. Now, it could have been a disguise, but it raised a much more alarming possibility that the killer either was a cop or had access to police equipment and could move through the city, even past crime scene perimeters, without suspicion.
That changes everything. It suggests someone inside.
Exactly. Which reinforced what the profiler, Helen, had been suggesting about the killer's state of mind.
What was her take on this escalating yet possibly self-destructive behavior?
Helen's analysis was really sharp. She argued the killer wasn't just unraveling because of the number of kills, the sheer volume. It was because he was finding this terrifying mix of pleasure and hell in the act itself.
Pleasure and hell.
Yeah. Like, he was driven by this righteous fury, but the killing itself was becoming both a release and a torment. He was deeply conflicted. And crucially, she believed he actually wanted to be stopped.
Wanted to be caught. Why target Beam so personally then?
That was part of it, according to Helen. His focus on Beam, the taunts, the psychological games, it was a subconscious challenge. He picked Beam, arguably the best investigator, someone formidable enough to finally catch him. To end the cycle, he couldn't stop himself.
Which leads directly to the most dangerous phase, the sting operation involving Detective Nell Corey.
Right. A huge gamble. Beam and Helen came up with this plan, playing right into the killer's presumed monitoring of the investigation and his possible connection to law enforcement.
What was the plan?
They made a very public announcement. Detective Nell Corey, the one who'd found the crucial cold case links, was being taken off the Justice Killer Task Force, put on indefinite leave, stress, burnout, whatever the official reason.
To make the killer think she was unprotected, vulnerable.
Exactly. To lull him into a false sense of security, thinking she was isolated, maybe an easy target if he suspected she knew too much or was getting too close.
But in reality, she was bait.
Visible, tempting bait. She stayed in her apartment but made a point of going out for short, seemingly casual trips, shopping, grabbing coffee, making herself seen. All while, unbeknownst to the public, she had this huge undercover police presence watching her every move. An army, the source calls it.
But Nell had her own suspicions brewing, didn't she? Closer to home.
Yeah, that's the terrifying twist for her. Her new boyfriend, Terry, described as a handsome air conditioner repairman, but also an aspiring actor.
What made her suspicious of him?
She started connecting dots. Terry had actually played a cop on Broadway once. He'd apparently used those contacts, or maybe just the role, to learn real police procedures. He'd even bragged to her about being good with lockpicks, knowing how to do break-in stuff he supposedly learned for acting roles.
Okay, that's unsettling.
But the clincher was her gun, her personal 9mm Glock. She kept it in a specific place in her dresser drawer.
Yeah.
And she noticed, definitively, that it had been moved. Just slightly, but moved.
Someone had handled her weapon.
Yes. And combined with his suspicious skills and knowledge, she suddenly saw Terry not just as a lover, but as a potential massive security risk, or worse.
Did she know if he was the killer, or just compromised?
She didn't know. That was the agony. Was he the JK? Was he working with the JK? Had he been planning to get closer to the investigation? She had to continue the sting operation, acting normal, while suspecting the man she was sleeping with might be involved in trying to kill her. #tag V. The true face of justice.
So, the trap is set, Nell is the bait, but she also suspects her own lover. The tension in that apartment must have been unbearable when things finally went down.
Unimaginable.
Yeah.
And it unraveled fast. First, Terry shows up. He actually breaks into her apartment, using the key she'd given him earlier.
His excuse.
He claimed he was just worried sick about her, heard she was on leave, wanted to make sure she was okay, wanted to protect her. Plausible deniability, maybe.
But his timing couldn't have been worse, or maybe better, depending on your perspective.
Exactly. Because moments after Terry gets inside, the real justice killer arrives, and things escalate immediately.
What happens?
The justice killer doesn't hesitate. Shoots Terry, hits him in the shoulder.
Shoots Terry. So Terry wasn't the main guy.
No, clearly not. Shooting Terry proved he was either an accomplice who had outlived his usefulness, someone the killer needed to silence, or maybe just collateral damage, a loose end being tied up.
And then the reveal. Who was the killer?
In that moment of chaos, with Terry down, the killer is finally face-to-face with Nell, and the identity is revealed. It was Deputy Chief Da Vinci.
Da Vinci, Beam's boss, the man who assigned Beam to the case?
The very same. The deputy chief running the entire investigation into the justice killer was the justice killer.
That's just staggering. The level of manipulation, the access he had.
It's almost unbelievable. He controlled the flow of information. He knew every move the task force was making. He could steer suspicion away from himself. He used his position, his authority, to hunt his victims while simultaneously directing the hunt for himself. The ultimate insider threat.
We have to understand why. What drove Da Vinci, a high-ranking police official, to become this executioner? It wasn't just abstract anger at the system, was it?
No, it was profoundly personal. Deeply rooted in grief and rage. He confessed it all eventually. It started years ago back in St. Louis before he transferred to New York.
What happened in St. Louis?
His son, Will. He was raped and murdered in 1988 by a man named Elvis Davison.
Oh, God. And
Davison walked. He was acquitted purely on a technicality of faulty search warrant that got crucial evidence thrown out. Da Vinci, a cop himself, watched the man who destroyed his son walk free because of a legal loophole.
That alone could break someone, but it got worse.
Yes. His wife, April, Will's mother, she couldn't cope with the acquittal, the injustice of it. Fell into a deep, debilitating depression. Became addicted to prescription medication. And in 1989, she committed suicide. An overdose.
So he lost his son to violence and his wife to the consequences of the system failing his son.
Exactly. In Da Vinci's mind, the legal system didn't just fail to punish Davison, it actively caused April's death. His crusade, his justice, began as pure revenge against that system, against the judges and jurors he felt enabled killers like Davison to destroy families like his. That pain traveled with him to New York.
Okay, that explains the rage. But what about Terry? Was he just a pawn? Did you know who Da Vinci really was?
Terry was definitely an accomplice, but maybe not a fully informed one initially. Da Vinci revealed Terry had been a regular juror, not the foreperson on the Dixon case, another one of those controversial acquittals.
So Da Vinci recruited him?
Seems like it. Used him for logistics, primarily. Terry's background as an actor, his skills learned for roles, his cover as a repairman that gave him access, allowed him to scout locations, maybe even plant things, like the Lima Ring. He helped Da Vinci plan, gather info, possibly even get close to Nell.
And Da Vinci shot him just to silence him.
Pretty much. Tie up loose ends. Da Vinci knew Terry was likely motivated more by the thrill, maybe some money, than by deep conviction. He probably figured Terry would eventually crack under pressure or try to cut a deal. So, eliminate the weak link.
Did Da Vinci say anything else to Beam? About the games, the taunts?
He did. He admitted the whole Harry Lima Ring thing was a complete fabrication, designed specifically to mess with Beam. He used his access as deputy chief to know Deem's history, his vulnerabilities.
And did he acknowledge what Helen, the profiler, said about wanting to be stopped?
Yes. He conceded she was right. That deep down, beneath the rage and the mission, he was conflicted. He was tormented by what he'd become. And picking Beam, playing those games with him, was, on some level, a cry for help, a way to finally be brought down. His double life was destroying him.
So how did it finally end? In Nell's apartment.
The standoff was intense but brief. After confessing, Da Vinci tried to make a break for it. He made it down to the lobby of Nell's building, but he was intercepted.
By Beam?
No, by a uniformed officer. Patrolman named Rags. Rags shot Da Vinci. Killed him right there in the lobby.
So the justice killer was stopped. What about Terry?
Terry survived the shoulder wound,
Mm.
became a crucial, if obviously compromised, witness. And Nell, she survived, but had to face the awful truth about Terry. That his affection was likely a performance, a tool used by Da Vinci to get close to her, to the investigation.
And Beam's final thoughts on it all. What was the ultimate tragedy for him?
Beyond the obvious horror, Beam reflected on the terrible human cost. The most devastating irony, perhaps, was discovering that Da Vinci and Helen, the brilliant profiler who understood his broken psyche so well, had actually been romantically involved. They were in love.
Wow.
Yeah. Da Vinci's secret life, this mission born of grief, had become this slow poison, as the source puts it. It didn't just destroy him, it corrupted and tainted everyone around him, even the woman who loved him and was trying professionally to understand him. A man consumed by his own quest for justice, leaving only wreckage behind.
Yeah.
#outro.
Just an absolutely devastating story. When you piece it all together, the Justice Killer case becomes this chilling portrait of vengeance. Highly personal, meticulously planned, all masked as a crusade against a flawed system.
And the killer wasn't some outsider, he was at the very top. Deputy Chief Da Vinci, using his grief, his rage over losing his family as fuel, and using his position to run the investigation against himself. Incredible deception.
The investigation itself was a tightrope walk, wasn't it, from the technical details?
Right. Matching those .32 steel-jacketed slugs,
Yeah.
figuring out the four-person pattern.
To recognizing the psychological shifts.
Yeah, like that move from clean shootings to the brutal, intimate violence of the strangulation. Understanding what that meant about his state of mind.
And they were constantly fighting distractions, the media frenzy over Adelaide Starr.
Which almost derailed the whole city's legal system.
And those deeply personal attacks on Beam using the Harry Lima ring.
All designed to break Beam's focus, to divert. It nearly worked.
But ultimately, it was the killer's own mistake that broke the case open.
His fatal error. Killing the innocent rapper Cold Cat. That shattered his own code, his justification. Made him predictable.
And that led to the incredibly risky decision to use Nell Corey as bait, putting one of their own directly in harm's way.
A necessary gamble, it turned out, to finally draw Da Vinci out.
Which brings us back to that final thought, that chilling quote from Da Vinci himself. The game isn't really about justice. That has to change.
Yeah. It leaves you wondering, doesn't it? If the system, the justice system, can produce a killer like Da Vinci, someone from within its own ranks, driven to such extremes by perceived failures, what does that say about the system itself?
And what does that public reaction, that fear embodied by the Adelaide Starr movement, tell us about people's faith in law and order when they feel it fails them so profoundly?
It's a deeply uncomfortable question. What happens when the person sworn to enforce the law feels compelled to become the executioner? Where does justice truly lie then?
A question that definitely sticks with you long after the case files are closed. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the Justice Killer.